Subscribe to Career Flight and press the bell icon to never miss our videos.
Good morning, students. Welcome you again to this Career Flight Initiative Current Affair classes. And today, in today's classes, we'll talk about three important current affairs of this year. And we'll start from space diplomacy. Now, when we talk about space diplomacy, we'll mostly talk about the advancement of the countries in the field of space science and technology. So here we are going to focus on Indian space science. So when you say Indian space, the first thing that will come to our mind is ISRO. So ISRO is the institute through which we launch our communication satellites, and along with that there's an there's a commercial wing of ISRO, that is Antrix. Antrix is the commercial wing of the ISRO, and through this commercial wing of Antrix we generally launched satellite from other countries, mostly from developing and underdeveloped countries. So what is the importance of this Antrix? How we can use this method of launching satellite from other countries? Actually, this method of launching satellite from for other countries through the antrix wing, we can improve the relationship. We can improve the relationship, foreign relationship with other countries. We can help other countries because the cost here is very low compared to other space stations, compared to other launching pads of the world. If you compare with NASA, that is Space Institute of USA. Then again, European Space Agency. They're actually very costly. It is very costly for the developing countries and the underdeveloped countries. But the Indian launching through ISRO, India used to launch satellite through ISRO is not very costly. It is very cost effective. So we can use this power of ISRO to launch satellite at a very low cost to improve our foreign relations. Foreign relations. And at the same time it project India as a soft power. It will project India as a soft power. Soft power means will help the countries, the developing and underdeveloped countries, will help those countries to launch their space program through ISRO. So we can say it diplomacy. We improve foreign relations through diplomacy. So here using space in improving the foreign relations with other countries. That's why it is known as space diplomacy. Now we'll try to define what is space diplomacy. You can define space diplomacy as the art. This is the art and practice. It is the art and practice through which art and practice of using space science to conduct international relation international relations and diplomacy. So this is the definition of space diplomacy. Here, this is actually space diplomacy is an art and practice where we are going to use our space science to conduct international relations and diplomacy. Now, as we can see, India has launched South Asian satellite. South Asian satellite. It is also known as GSAT-9. GSAT-9 satellite, and it was actually used. It was launched for all the SAARC countries, for the Indian neighbors, and through that, India was improving its relations, its foreign relation with the neighboring countries. And this GSAT-9 can be used by all the our neighbor countries to do their space programs, space like telemedicine. They can use it in telemedicine for education purpose. For education purpose, then again to know about the disaster, all those things. Our neighboring countries can use this GSAT-9 countries. So it is a kind of space diplomacy only. It is a kind of space diplomacy of the country India. Okay, through that space diplomacy, by launching the satellite South Asian satellite GSAT-9 in the year 2017, what India has done, that India has improved its conducted its foreign relationship, its international relationship, and it helped India to project as a soft power. Now, why it was in news? Because in this year, India has planned to establish five ground stations in our neighboring countries. Five ground stations. Okay, India is going to establish five ground stations where in countries like Nepal. These are the countries where India is going to establish ground stations. Nepal, Bhutan, then Maldives, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh. So you can see that these are all part of SARC countries. They are all part of SARC countries. So India is going to put five ground stations in these five countries: Nepal, Bhutan, Maldives, and Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. So it was an extension. It was the extension of the South Asian Satellite Program. It was the extension actually, the establishing of five ground stations in these countries: Nepal, Bhutan, Maldives, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh. Actually, is the extension program of this South Asian Satellite Program. That is GSAT-9. We also call this satellite as GSAT-9. So this is actually what space diplomacy is. And again, we can find that in space there are many requirements, means there are many necessary things that we have to do for the development of the country, for the development of the regions, including all the world, different parts of the world. There are many countries around the world, they're economically they're backward. So to develop those regions and also at the same time protect those regions from disasters, calamities like tropical cyclone, we need to help those countries, small countries around the world, through our this cost-effective space program of ISRO. So this is the importance of space diplomacy. Now let's try to see what is the plus point, what are the advantages and what are the disadvantages in this space science. Space science has emerged as a new arena of competition and cooperation. Space science has emerged as a new arena of both competition and cooperation. We can find competition among the different countries. You can find competition among the different countries around the world in the field of space science, especially countries like China. They are much advanced when we compare with our country, India. So they are very much advanced. So they have satellite all over the around these places like Tibet also. In Tibet, they have established ground stations, and those satellites, ground stations of China, they can detect all the Indian satellites. They can detect Indian satellites, and if required, they can also blind the Indian satellites. So it is very much important for us to put this establishing of five ground stations. The establishment of five ground stations is very important for India. Okay, that's why we have extended this program, South Asian program. Okay, around these countries. Now again, cooperation. Why cooperation? Again, I have told you, cooperation means cooperating with the other countries, less developed countries. So we are cooperating with them and help them in progressing socially, economically and socially. We are helping them to progress. So space science is both field of competition and cooperation. So some of the India's initiative in space diplomacy. We'll see what are the some India's initiative in space diplomacy. First of all, Navik. Navik is a space program where it is a regional positioning satellite which is helping all the SARC countries, most of the SARC countries, to use the regional positioning system. It is like GPS, regional positioning system, Navik. So this Navik can be used by SARC countries also as a regional GPS. It was an initiative of Indian ISRO. ISRO has launched this satellite Navik, and that can be used by our neighbors also. Then again, NISAR. NISAR is a collaboration of India with USA. NISAR is a collaboration of Indian Space Program ISRO with NASA. Then again, Chandrayaan 1. Chandrayaan 1 was also a collaboration of Indian Space ISRO with NASA, and both USA and India has found presence of water molecule in the surface of Moon through this Chandrayaan 1. Then again, ISRO has also established ground stations in Myanmar, Indo-Myanmar, Indo-Myanmar Friendship Center. There's a Indo-Myanmar Friendship Center where India has established its ground stations, which will help Myanmar to improve to predict the disaster. Then again, it can be helpful for economic development also. They can help in the growth of agriculture, and they can protect their agriculture from different kinds of calamities, all these things. So you can find another space diplomacy with India and Myanmar. Then there is a program called Struck, where you can find Indian ground stations in Brunei, in the country Brunei, then Mauritius and Indonesia. So you can find Indian through this program Struck, you can find Indian ground stations in Brunei, Mauritius and Indonesia. This is another example of India's initiative in space diplomacy. Now, how we can use India's space program as space diplomacy? Now, it is neighborhood first policy. There is a term called neighborhood first policy. Okay, then GSAT 9 that we have already talked about. GSAT 9, it is the South Asian satellite. So, through this GSAT 9 South Asian satellite, India is furthering its neighborhood first policy, and through that, India is helping its neighbors in the development of space science. Then again, it will enhance India as a soft power. It will enhance India's image as a soft power. Enhance India's image as a soft power. That will help the development of India. Will also help for the development of other underdeveloped areas, underdeveloped regions. So this is how India's initiative in space diplomacy also uh, improving the image of India as a soft power. And at the same time, it is also countering China. It is important for countering China also. Since we know that China is very much advanced in the space science, and they have also established their own space science space program, space stations before some year before, and again they have also placed their ground stations around the world, especially in Tibet. In Tibet, you can find in Chinese ground stations in Tibet, and through that ground station, they can observe, they can watch Indian satellite, and if required, they can also blind the Indian satellites. That's why it is another important to check the China, to check the counter the China. We need to establish ground stations in different parts of the world around this, especially around our neighbor. And again, space diplomacy is a new arena of bilateral relations. Bilateral relations. So bilateral relations means the relation between two countries. So it will help. India's initiative in space diplomacy will help in bilateral relationship between two countries. If India is helping in launching of satellites from other countries, then it will help the relationship. It will improve the relationship between these two countries, both economically and socially. So that's why it is important to enhance the bilateral relationship between different countries. That is one of the importance of space diplomacy, India's space diplomacy. Now, what are the concerns of this space science? Concerns regarding space science. First of all is no legal agreement. There is no legal agreement for the use of space science. There is a United Nations Office for Outer Space, Space Office for Outer Space. Okay, there is a office. There is a forum United Space Office for Outer Space, but it is not binding. Okay, this there is a forum for this space adventure called United Space Office for Outer Space. This is a forum where they make different rules to use the space, how you should use the space, and up to what extent you should use the space, and what kind of activities we should do, and what kind of activities we should not do in this space. Or actually, you can find there are some rules where you can find a United Space Office of for outer space, but these are not legal agreement. Okay, this is not binding agreement like NPT, CTBT. NPT, CTBT, they are legal agreement, legal binding agreement. If you have signed once in this agreement, you have to follow the rules. But here, no country have to sign. It is not a legal agreement, not binding agreement. So no country is signing in this agreement. So it is not very important to follow all these rules. It is not necessary to follow these rules, but still the world, the countries that are advanced in space, they are actually following these rules. Okay, but it is not legal. It also perpetuates global inequality. Inequality. It perpetuates global inequality, means it increases global inequality. Why? Some of the countries, if you say most of the advanced countries like European Space Agency, then Japan Space Agency called JAXA, then again American NASA, they are very advanced. And some of the space agencies around the world, you can find a space agency around the world, all over the world, mostly in the poor developing countries like North Korea. Also, you can find a space program. Even in Iran also, you can find a space program, and there are many small countries who are advancing in space program. So it is causing an inequality. There's an inequality. Some of them are very advanced, and some of the space programs are very poor, though they are advancing, but they are very poor. So it is causing one kind of global inequality in the space program. One more concern of misuse of resources. Misuse of resources. So as I have said, that some of the poor countries are also doing research in space science. Some of the poor countries like North Korea. North Korea, the GDP per capita income is very low in North Korea. Economically, they are backward. There is famine. You can find periodic occurrence of famine, diseases, different kind of diseases. The lifestyle is not very good for the people, but still they are advancing. They are doing work. They are doing research in space science. So it is a kind of misuse of resource, because they are, instead of putting those resources in these poor people to feed them, to start any welfare program, they are using this money, these resources in their space program. So one more concern is that they are misusing the resources of the country. Now there is another point: lack of uniform definition. Lack of uniform definition of space boundary. So there is no any uniform definition of space boundary. It differs from different countries. Since there is no any uniform definition, any uniform boundary, any line in the space which can divide one space from the another space, it also can cause problem between different countries, and it may also trigger war also in future because of this absence of proper definition of space boundary. That is one other concern of this space diplomacy around the world. One more concern is that space weaponization. Space weaponization. So the space may get weaponized. In the space, we can put some satellites that with having the power of destroying other satellites, and it can also attack other countries from space. So this kind of weaponization of called space weaponization. You are not doing it right now, but in future, if some of the countries take such kind of steps, then it may finish the civilization of the human beings from on the earth, because it will be very destructive compared to all other weapons. This space weaponization will be very destructive. So it is another concern of the space diplomacy. And there's a program in the world called United Nations Committee on the peaceful use of outer space, in short, COPAS. So this is an committee of the United Nations Committee. Okay, on the peaceful use of outer space, peaceful use of outer space. So this committee find out different rules. What are the rules the countries should follow? Though this is not binding again, and but the countries generally follow the rules that is provided by COPAS, that is United Nations Committee on the peaceful use of outer space. They put some rules that up to what extent the space science should explore the universe. Then again, what kind of activity you can do? Suppose in the moon, when you land on the moon, now up to what kind of activity you can do in moon? Okay, it should not destroy the surface of the moon. Also, all these things there's a committee called UN COPAS. Through this committee, they make these rules. And the space science, you can find this kind of rules from the United Nations. And you have to remember that they are not binding rules. So it may be another concern. It is also another concern since they are not binding. Any of the country can break these rules. So the next topic that we am going to discuss is minimum basic income. This is about space diplomacy. The next topic is minimum basic income. Now, minimum basic income is actually it is not there in the country now. It is a kind of welfare. It is a kind of proposal now. The think tank of the country is thinking about this minimum basic income. Now, it is similar to UBI, Uniform Basic, Universal Basic Income. But there are some differences. You can find what is minimum basic income or universal basic income means providing money to the people of the country. Okay, providing money through their bank account instead of providing subsidy to different basic necessities like food grains, oil, then sugar, all these things. What the some of the countries and the government of India also planning or thinking, not planning, actually thinking to provide a basic income source. Through that, the government will directly send money to the account of the beneficiary, and through that, the people can spend their money according to their use, according to their need. They can spend the money. So there is some difference between minimum basic income and universal basic income. Now, what is the difference? That it will come with conditions. It will come with some conditions. If it is implemented, then it will come with some conditions, and it is very unconditional. Universal basic income is unconditional, and it will provide it at household level to every household, and it will be provided at individual level. Individually, they will be provided the money directly. It is social welfare system that guarantees what is basic minimum income. It is a social welfare system. Social welfare system. Okay, minimum basic income is a social welfare system that guarantees a basic. It guarantees a basic income. Guarantees basic income. It guarantees a basic income to the households of the country. Then again, is there any example around the world? If you try to find examples around the world, is it implemented already in the world, and is it helpful, or is there is disadvantages in implementation of this basic minimum income? So we can find examples from around the world. Okay, so there is a program in Finland called Perustu Kokeilu. Perustu Koki. So Perustu Kokeilu is an example of from Finland, from the country Finland. Then again in Brazil also. Bolsa Familia. So these are examples from around the world where the government are using this kind of program, providing income, a basic minimum income to the people. The first example you can find from Finland. The program name is Perustu Kokilu. So in this program, what the government do? They provide income, they provide money to a group of people. Okay, at the age of 20, at the age group of 26 to 59 years. Those who are unemployed, those who are unemployed in this age group from 26 to 59 years, they're provided with a basic minimum income, and that program is known as Peristo Coquilo. Then again in Brazil, you can find a program called Bolsa Familia. So in this program of Bolsa Familia, again the government provide money, okay, a basic minimum income to the poor people, to the poor families. Okay, so these are some programs that you can see around the world. Again, even in the country Madhya Pradesh also there is a program. In Madhya Pradesh also there is a program, a pilot program there in the Madhya Pradesh through which they have been the people of the MP was provided with a basic minimum income. So these are some examples we can find around the world. Now we'll see what are the merits and demerits of providing basic minimum income. First of all, we'll see at the merits. Merits of providing basic minimum income. First one is it will lead to social justice. Social justice and equity. So you can find most of the subsidy program in the country. Most of the subsidy program in the country, they are focusing on the poor, though they are focusing on the poor, but they are providing welfare. They're providing food grains, oil, all these things. Okay, they're providing the social programs, welfare programs. They're providing them basic necessities to the poor people without knowing what are the requirements of the people. Okay, now if we provide money directly to them, then what will happen? They can understand their needs. They know their needs, and accordingly they can spend on their needs. Okay, suppose a few group of people, they do not need the things that are provided by the welfare programs of the government. But if you provide, instead of providing those unnecessary things to the poor people, if you provide the money, then they can use that money to buy the required things by themselves. So this may cause social justice. It will be social justice for them, and it will also lead to equity. Okay, they can fulfill the things that they do not have. So it will lead to social justice and equity. Next will be freedom of choice. Hmm? So freedom of choice. Again, if you provide money, income to the people, okay, we can, if you provide poor people the money directly to their bank account, then again they will get a freedom of choice. Then again they will know where to spend the money and what kind of things they need, what are the basic necessities they have. Because at this present generation people will have different requirements, and based on that, instead of depending on the welfare system of the government in the form of subsidy, they will have a freedom of choice, and they can use this money to invest or spend anywhere according to their need. Next merit is poverty alleviation. Of course, if the poor people will get money to their bank account, it will help to alleviate the poverty. Okay, it is very simple point. One of the merit will be of minimum basic income will be it will help to alleviate, to reduce the poverty in the country. Now, if we transfer the income, there has been a calculation that through economic survey we came out with a calculation that economic survey of 2016-17 has came out with a calculation that income transfer income transfer in the form of minimum basic income, okay, income transfer in the form of MBI can reduce the poverty. It can reduce the poverty up to 0.5% at the cost of 4 to 4.5% of GDP, excluding the excluding the top 25% of the people, top 25% of the people, of the citizen. Means what the economic survey of 2016 and 17 has found that if we provide this minimum basic income, we can reduce the poverty of the country up to 0.5%. And for that, the cost will be 4 to 4% of the GDP of the country. You have to invest 4 to spend 4 to 5 4.5% of the GDP to reduce the poverty up to 0.5%. And the condition will be we cannot include the top 25% of the citizens. If you exclude the top 25% of the citizens and at the cost of 4 to 4.5% of the GDP, we can reduce the poverty up to 0.5%. So this is one of the merit of minimum basic income. Then again, it has the potential to reduce the rural distress. Potential, it has the potential to decrease the rural distress. So you can find in rural areas that sometimes they crops failed, sometimes their agricultural crops fail. So at that time it becomes difficult for them to manage their household activities because of lack of money. So at that time the minimum basic income can help to reduce the rural distress at the time. At the village area, at the rural areas, the people will not come under distress because of lack of money. Then again, it will lead to social development. It will lead to social development. Since we have already explained one of the program in the Madhya Pradesh, there is a pilot program for this minimum basic income. They have implemented this minimum in the form of and another form this minimum basic income, and this what the result they have found that the social we have found some social development in those regions in the form of availability of nutritious food, then increasing in the enrollment ratio, enrollment ratio in the school, enrollment ratio increased. Then again, it has also led to increase in the toilet, building of toilet in the schools. Okay, so this social development we can find some social development, and from the project of Madhya Pradesh, in the project of Madhya Pradesh we have seen some development in the society, like they have increased in the intake of nutritious food because of this program in the form of minimum basic income. Then again, enrollment ratio, that is the admission to schools has increased, and again the retention of the students also increased, especially the female students. Then again, toilet building has also increased in these schools of Madhya Pradesh. So this is a kind of social development that we can see when we can implement this minimum basic income. So again, one of the merit point is it will increase the financial inclusion. Financial inclusion. Financial inclusion means most of the people will come in this network of banking system. Since to avail the money from this minimum basic income, they need to have a account, bank account, and for that, most of the people when they will come in this banking network, they will become part of this financial inclusion. They will directly or indirectly participate in the economic development of the country. Now, what are some challenges? Now, we'll see these are the merits of minimum basic income. We have discussed the merits of minimum basic income. Now, we'll try to see the challenges that we'll face in the form of minimum basic income. First challenge is the definition of minimum basic income. It is a definition. Now, how we can define how much amount of money we have to send to the people, to all the people, to the household in the form of minimum basic income. Now, who will decide what will be the amount of money that will be provided, that should be provided to the people in the form of minimum basic income? The first we can find in Tendulkar committee. There was a Tendulkar committee that in the beginning that tried to find out the minimum money that is required per people, that will decide either they are under BPL or under BPL or above BPL. Tendulkar committee. Now, what Tendulkar committee says, 33 rupees per day. Rupees 33 per day is the minimum requirement. It's the minimum requirement for people to live above BPL, below from below. This is a line called BPL, below poverty line. And if they can be provided rupees 32 per day, they will not come under this BPL, below this BPL. So if we apply this technical committee report, we will find that around 12,000 rupees we have to spend. Rupees 12,000 we have to spend per individual per year. Per year you have to spend. The government have to spend rupees 12,000. So it will cost around 11 to 12% of the GDP. 11 to 12% of the GDP. If according to Tenulkar committee we provide this basic minimum income, it will cost us around 11 to 12% of the GDP, and 11 to 12% of GDP is very huge amount. And as you know, the existing subsidy burden on the country is 4 to 4.5% of GDP. The whatever subsidy the government of the country is providing, it cost the country around 4 to 4.5% of GDP. But if you try to implement the Tendulkar committee, under the Tendulkar committee, if you try to implement the minimum basic income, then we have to provide 12,000 rupees, 12,000 per year. That will cost 11 to 12% of the GDP, and it is a very huge amount for us. That is another challenge. Then there will be fiscal challenge. Now, what kind of fiscal challenge? Then again, to provide this much amount of money to the people, to the poor people, then we have to take more taxes. We have to increase the amount of taxes from the wealthy people. From the wealthy people, we have to increase the tax. Tax have to be increased from the wealthy people. So as you know, uh, the tax base is very low in India. Very few people contribute to the tax to the system. They contribute. Very few people contribute to the tax in the country, and the tax base is very low here. But again, from this few people, if you increase the tax, then again it will be a burden. It will be a burden for this wealthy people again. We cannot increase suddenly the tax from these people in a very huge amount. Then again, it may cause inflation also. It may cause inflationary pressure. Inflationary pressure. Now, as you know how inflation is caused, when you put lot of money into the system, when we in, induce, or if you put more money to the system, economic system, then of course the purchasing capacity of the people will increase. When you put money to the system, the purchasing power of the people will increase, and because of that, they will try to buy more and more things. Requirements will increase, demand will increase. If you put more money to the system, demand will increase. Demand of the products or things will increase. Okay, if you provide more money to the system, demand will increase, and accordingly, the production of the goods should be there. Production of the goods should be there. Goods and services should be there in the system. If there is not enough goods and services in the system, then it will cause inflation. So the price of the goods and services will increase. There is money to the system, and the demand is also very high because of presence of money. But there is not enough production of goods and services, and it will lead to inflation. And because of that, it may also cause inflationary pressure in the economy. That's why it is one of the challenges. Now again, there's a cash versus kind dilemma. Another challenge is cash versus kind. One problem with providing cash is that, as we know, most of the household is actually ruled by economically, financially, it is actually under the control of male members. In the conservative, most of the conservative society of the country, you can find the economy, the finance is under the hand of the male. So the male, some of the places where the male can use that money and invest in the sin goods like alcohol, smoking, in all those products, they can use it. And if you are providing cash to the people in the bank, and if the money is taken by the male member in some of the conservative society where they are not investing that money, spending the money for their household, for educating their children, for the betterment of their healthy lifestyle of this house, but instead of that, they can also use that money to buy sin goods. Sin goods means all the alcoholic products like alcohol, then again smoking, all these things they can use it. So it may cause a problem again if you provide money directly to the people through the bank account. It may increase the vulnerability also. Vulnerability. Vulnerability of children and women. Because of this again conservative nature of some of the male society, male dominated society, if the cash directly goes to the male member, it will increase the vulnerability of the children and women in the society. So that may be another challenge for this minimum basic income. Now again there is a problem of targeted versus universal. Targeted versus universal. That is another challenge. Should it be universal? Means shall we provide this basic minimum income to everyone? Or shall it be targeted? Or shall we choose the particular people, group of people, those who are come under poverty line? So it will be again a challenge. Then again, to target the people, the beneficiaries, we have to find out the real people who actually needs the money. Then again, it may cause corruption also. In this part, we can find corruption. Then leakage. It can also cause leakage of money. That will be another problem in this targeted system. If you target the people to provide this basic minimum income, then again in the universal system, what are the problem we'll have? The cost will be very high, since in the universal system we are not targeting a group of people, we are providing the money to the all the people. At the same time, if you provide the money to all the people of the country, and as you know the population of the country is very huge, it will cost a very high GDP. It will cost a very huge money. So that is another problem of targeting the people. Then again, it should be targeted or it should be universal. Another problem is that it can reduce the worker productivity. Workers' productivity. It can reduce the worker productivity. How? Since they are getting the money in their bank account, so there is no any incentive for them to work more. There will be no incentive for them since they are getting the money directly to the bank account. So they are not going to work harder. Then again, this will reduce the worker. It may reduce the worker productivity. So again, implementation challenges are there of the basic minimum income. Implementation challenges. Now, what kind of implementation challenges we will have? Means since we know most of the people, many people do not have bank account. Okay, we do not have most of the people in rural areas. We do not have bank account. Plus, last mile connectivity is poor. Last mile connectivity of the last mile connectivity of the banking system is poor in most of the rural areas of the country. So it may cause another problem in implementing this minimum basic income. In implementing of this minimum basic income, it may cause another problem whether there is enough bank account in the country. And again, if they do not have the bank account, they have to search the banks to open their account. Then also it depends on the last mile where it is there, what will be the distance from from the home to the bank, all these things. Because if they have to move from the village to the urban areas to open a bank account, it will cost them because they have to waste their economic production for the day. So we have seen what is basic minimum income. Now, what is the requirement of this basic minimum income? We have seen both the positive aspects of the basic minimum income and again the negative challenges of the basic minimum income. So with this, I have completed this topic also. Then the next topic will be uranium requirements in India. Uranium requirements in India. Now, as you know, why we need uranium, the needs of uranium. Uranium is a radioactive element. Everybody knows it that uranium is a radioactive element. And why we need this uranium as a radioactive element? Because it is helpful in nuclear fusion reaction. In nuclear reactions, In science, we call it nuclear fission reactions. Okay. This uranium is the atom. It is a element, radioactive element, and this element is used in the nuclear plant to cause different types of reactions called nuclear fission reaction. And through that, we produce energy. Through this radioactive elements, we can produce energy. Okay, it is this is through this reaction, nuclear reaction, and this energy can be used both for civil purpose and for making weapon also, nuclear weapon. Now, how you can use uranium in the civil purpose in the production of energy? But you can produce hydroelectric. Okay, sorry, you can produce electricity. We can produce electricity. Uranium, you can use uranium to produce electricity. So it will help in the civilian development. It will help the people of the country. And again, if you are using for weapon making, so it will enhance the power, the defense power of the country. But there are some problems since uranium is very less amount in the country. The amount of uranium we can find in the country is very in a less amount. Mostly we find from Jharkhand, but still there are some reserves in the country, around the country, especially in Meghalaya also. But we cannot take the uranium from the places, from the different places, because of some many various social reasons. Now, why we need domestic uranium? Most of the uranium we purchase from foreign source. We import it from foreign countries. The source of uranium mostly for us is foreign source. We import from foreign countries, mostly the countries from Russia, then China, Russia, then Kazakhstan. Recently, we have started to purchase from Uzbekistan also. Then again from Canada and France. These are the main countries from where we import uranium. But one thing you have to remember that we are importing this uranium from these countries, from these foreign countries, and this import come under this watchdog called IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency. So what they do, there is a watchdog. They will see the where you are going to use this uranium, whether you are going to put this uranium in the civil use or you are going to put the use in the weapon, in the making of weapon through enrichment. How we can make weapon? We have to enrich the uranium up to a very high extent. And full check it, IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency. So they are the watchdog. So they will see the imported uranium that you're purchasing from these countries are we are using it for civil or weapon purpose. So we cannot use it for weapon making weapon or nuclear weapon. We cannot use this imported foreign uranium in the making of weapon. We have to use the imported uranium only in this civil purpose. But as a country, for a defense purpose, also we need this one uranium for making nuclear weapon. And from where this uranium should come, it will be only from domestic source because it is coming from the domestic from within the country. So there is no any watchdog that will look into whether you are using it for good purpose like making civil electricity or you are putting it in the making of weapon nuclear weapon. So domestic source of uranium is very important for us for making nuclear weapon, though we have source of uranium from these countries but we cannot put them in this making of weapon. So that is the importance of domestic mining of uranium. Now what is the current scenario of this domestic mining of uranium in the country? There is a place called Jadoguda in Jharkhand, and most of the uranium domestically we produce from these mines, Jadoguda mines, Jadoguda mines in Jharkhand, and Jharkhand, most of the uranium domestic production of uranium comes from this Jharkhand area. Now imports we have already seen from which other countries from where we import this uranium. Now there's a corporation in India called Uranium Corporation of India Limited. Uranium Corporation of India Limited. Corporation of India Limited. The Uranium Corporation of India Limited that come under Department of Atomic Energy, DAE. Okay. The Uranium Corporation of India Limited that comes under Department of Atomic Energy. They look after this mining of uranium from the country within the country. Now, why we need? What is the need of this uranium? What is the need of this domestic production of uranium? Domestic. Domestic uranium. Why need domestic uranium? First of all, we have talked about it that the foreign imported uranium we cannot put it in use for the making of these weapons, nuclear weapons, and for this making nuclear weapons we need domestic uranium because the foreign that is imported from the foreign countries, the uranium can be put only in the civil use because they are under the watchdog of IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency. So there is a main first point will be there is a first need to put in the use of domestic production of weapon in the production of weapon, nuclear weapon. Now future capacity of the country. In future, the country has projected to produce 22,480 megawatt of nuclear power capacity by 2031 to 32. So by 2031 to 32, the government has projected to produce 22,480 megawatt of nuclear power capacity. And for that, we need more and more uranium. Okay, the imported uranium is not enough for us still because while importing, we have to invest a lots of money for an exchange. And if we can find this uranium from within the country only, it will cost a lot to us. So to produce this much amount of power, 22,480 megawatt of nuclear power, by 2031 to 32, we need to mine more domestic uranium. Now, what are some challenges? What are some challenges in this domestic mining of uranium? So you can see uranium contamination challenges in uranium mining. First one is contamination of water. You can find uranium contamination of groundwater. So there is a WHO recommendation that contamination 0.15% uranium. According to World Health Organization has recommended that the amount of uranium should not exceed more than 0.15% in the groundwater. But in some of the lakes and ponds in Rajasthan and Gujarat, you can find it is more than this amount. So it is called uranium contamination. And if it comes inside our body, it may cause different types of infections. Means it can cause us cancer also. So it is harmful for us. If you are doing mining, uranium mining, obviously this from the mining side, this uranium will mix with the water, groundwater, and if it get mixed with the groundwater, and if the amount increases more than 0.15%, then it will become dangerous for the people living around that region. So because it will come in their body system, and it will cause cancer also. Again, we can find some anti-nuclear protest around the country. Anti-nuclear protest. For example, at Jaita nuclear power plant, we have seen in Jaita nuclear power plant, we have seen lots of protest. Why? After the Fukushima disaster in Japan, there is a nuclear power plant. There was a nuclear power plant in Japan called Fukushima, and after the tsunami, that got devastated. The Fukushima nuclear power plant. After that, people got conscious about the implementation, about the establishing of this power plant. That's why a group of people, including some of the NGOs, they are protesting against this nuclear power plant. That is another challenge for this uranium industry. There are some other problems for this implementation of this uranium industry, increasing the uranium in the country, domestic production of uranium. How? The problem will come land acquisition. It is another most important problem, land acquisition. Not only in uranium mining, but in all different cases, in other different economic activities, you can find land acquisition is a very big, difficult problem for the country. So it will cause another barrier in the mining of this uranium in the country. And again, if we have acquired the land, there will be a problem of rehabilitation of the people. We have to find suitable place and we have to provide them suitable jobs, and they have to agree with that. And these are another problem. Again, there is another challenge for this uranium mining in the country. So again, in this topic we have seen the uranium requirements in India. What are the problems and prospects of uranium mining in the country? And with that, I have completed today's current affair classes. And if you have any doubt, You can put it in your comment box. We'll go through it and try to give you answer. And please subscribe the channel and share it with your friends. Thank you so much.
Subscribe to Career Flight and press the bell icon to never miss our videos.